This is the Louie T Network.
In the Lab Room.
Exclusive.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me for this In the Lab Room exclusive divisional breakdown. Here to break down the NFC North Division. This division has seen a plethora of lead changes. Green Bay seemed to have assumed control early on. Before that, it was the Bears division to lose. Now it's been the Detroit Lions division, and it seems like if they take care of business, it will be their division in 2013. Let's get to the board and break this division down. Looking at the NFC North, and as I just stated, the Detroit Lions are atop this division with a record of 7-5. In second place are the Chicago Bears at 6-6. Packers are in third currently at 5-6-1. Vikings bringing up the rear at 3-8-1. So we look at the Detroit Lions, who are atop this division with coming off an impressive win within the division on Thanksgiving versus the Green Bay Packers. They are 4-1, and again, if you want to make a statement, if you want to win a division, the easiest way to do so is be good inside of the division, and that's what the Lions have done. Only dropping one game this season within the division. That was at Green Bay earlier in the season. And so they played extremely good football within this division. Hence the 7-5 mark. Hence they're in first place in this division. The easiest way to assume control of a division is to clean up within the division. You're going to play a higher percentage of your games within your own division than anywhere else. And so if you can take care of business within your division, you give yourself a great shot at winning X said division. And so that's what the Detroit Lions have done, have played really well inside the division, and they're reaping the benefits of it by leading this division at 7-5. You look at their remaining schedule. At Philadelphia in week 14, week 15, home for Baltimore, home for the Giants in week 16, rounding out their slate in week 17 at Minnesota. So you look at this remaining schedule, and this is a very, very doable schedule down the stretch. There are a couple of toughies in there if you're Detroit. This Philadelphia game, that is no cakewalk. This Eagles team has been playing extremely good football of late. Winners of 4 straight. Nicholas Foles hasn't thrown an interception yet. We know the Lions have struggled in pass defense, and so they've got to get pressure on him. They've got to make him make mistakes, or that could be a long day for them in Philadelphia. That's easily a game that they can go on the road and win, but in the same breath, that's also a game that they could easily lose as well. Baltimore at home, that's going to be a tough win. The Ravens are desperately in need of wins down the stretch. They don't have any margin for error, do the Ravens. They need to win every single football game, as you do as well. And so I expect two teams to meet in that game that have it all on the line. And so Baltimore is going to give you their best shot. They're playing better of late. The offensive line is starting to get just a tad bit better, and they're starting to score more points in Baltimore. That should be a fun matchup. That's, again, much like the Eagles game, a game that you could easily win, a game that you could easily lose. If you continue to turn the football over like you've done, even in that Thanksgiving when you turned the football over, and if you continue to turn the football over, you won't beat Baltimore, you won't beat Philadelphia. You have to stop turning the football over. Week 16, Giants. You're going to win that football game. Okay? You're going to go to New York and win that football game if you don't turn it over. If you take care of the football, the Giants aren't a good enough team to beat you in week number 16. You look at week 17 at Minnesota. That's a dangerous game. The Vikings won't have anything to play for except pride and trying to keep you from winning the division. That's going to be a huge matchup for them as well as for you. And so it's family business. You don't know what to expect, but the way you've been playing within the division, I expect you to go to Minnesota and come out of there with a W. So looking at this slate of games remaining for the Detroit Lions, I really see them going 3-1, 2-2 at the worst to finish up. I feel like 10-6 should be able to win this division. I think 9-7 could ultimately win this division. If you look at it, you own the tiebreaker over the Bears because of a season sweep. So by virtue of that, you actually have a 2-game lead over them right now. And so looking at this remaining slate, 2-2 gets you to 9-7, which I think will be good enough to win this division. But I think 3-1, just to be on the safe side, is what you're aiming for to get you to 10-6. That would definitely put you in the postseason. So at Philadelphia, that's a winnable game. Let's call that one a win because I think you can win that game. At home for Baltimore, that's another winnable game. Let's call that a win as well. Giants, that's a win. Minnesota, at Minnesota, that's a win as well. If I had to say you were going to drop one, which I think you will, it'll be this one here at Philadelphia. So that would put you at 10-6, 3-1 down the stretch. I think you can win Baltimore, Giants at home, and at Minnesota. I could see you cleaning this up and going 11-5. I could see you dropping one, going 10-6. I could see you dropping two. And if you were to drop two, it would be Philly and Baltimore in my estimation. And so I think you can go 10-6. You could easily go 11-5. 9-7 is your worst outcome with this stretch of games. And so I think the Detroit Lions, I think they feel really good about the prospects of them winning this division because of the work that they've done in this division. This divisional record right here has set the foundation for this Lions team to win this division. And that's what I'm talking about. Doing your work in the division reaps its benefits down the road. And by the Lions sweeping the Bears and having that divisional mark, even if these two teams finish up tied, they own the tiebreaker over the Chicago Bears, and they would hold a better divisional mark, so they would win the division by virtue of tiebreakers anyway. And that's what the importance of winning divisional games can do for you. So, Chicago Bears, second place team, and they're going through their annual late season meltdown. They were once, if I'm not mistaken, 5-3 on the season. Since then, they've went 1-3, lost some close games, haven't been able to close out football games and beat teams that they're supposed to beat, a la the Minnesota Vikings a week ago in Minnesota. You had them by 10. You were up 20-10 in that football game, blew that lead, had a field goal attempt in overtime, missed it, and lost the football game. So this Bears team has found ways to lose of late. And so at 6-6 and 2-3 in the division, that is really backbreaking for this Chicago Bears team because, again, that loss to Minnesota last week was devastating to your cause because not only is it a loss, okay, it's a loss to your overall record, it's a loss to your NFC conference record, but more importantly, it's a loss to your divisional record. And so now you can't finish above 500 in this division. The best you can do is 3-3 in this division. And so that was a tough loss a week ago to Minnesota. You look at the remaining slate for the second place Bears. Home for Dallas on Monday night. That should be a huge football game. Again, if you're the Bears, all you can do is take care of your own business and win football games. Here's a big one on Monday night to round out Week 14 against the Cowboys. Then you go on the road to Cleveland and on the road to Philadelphia, back-to-back road games. And then you wrap up your season Week 17 home for the Green Bay Packers. Now, let's break this down and look at how this season for the Bears could end up. Home for Dallas. That's a winnable game. That's a game that I think you must, M-U-S-T, all caps, must win if you are the Chicago Bears. You lose that game, go ahead and pack up your season, put a nice roll of tape on it, seal the box up, and go home for the summer because you're done. Go home for the winter, excuse me. You're done. Because you've essentially squandered all the margin of error you've had over the last couple of weeks during this nosedive. And so, you got to win the Dallas game. Simple as that. You don't win this game, forget about it. Forget about the playoffs. Forget about winning the division. Forget about everything. Forget about all of it if you can't beat Dallas at home. Then you go to Week 15 at Cleveland. That's a game that I expect you to win, that you will win. On the road against Cleveland, they don't have a quarterback. They're struggling. Doesn't matter. You're a better football team than them. I expect you to beat Cleveland. At Philly, that's going to be a dangerous game for you. I don't know if you win that football game. I honestly don't. The way you're playing right now, you're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. Your offensive line has been solid, but your running game to me just seems like it's inconsistent. I don't know if it's because Matt Forte isn't getting the ball enough, or it doesn't seem like this run game is as impactful as I'm used to it being for the Bears. That's going to be a tough matchup. On the road against Philadelphia, Week 16. Home for Green Bay, Week 17. the fact of the matter is that game could mean everything. That game could mean nothing by week number 17. That game could have Aaron Rodgers. That game could not have Aaron Rodgers. It's so far away right now, it's hard to really say what that game is going to mean because, again, depending on what you do in the next 3 weeks will determine how much weight that last game against Green Bay holds. But looking at this slate, Bears are currently 6-6. I think it's going to take, at worst, 9 games to win this division, which would mean you would have to go 3-1 down the stretch. If you really want to win this division, you need to clean the plate. You need to clean this plate up, make sure you get all of the food off of that plate, win all of these games. Because, again, you don't hold the tiebreaker against the Detroit Lions. They've swept you this season. They have a better divisional record. So you cannot finish tied with the Detroit Lions. You have to finish one game better than them. And to ensure that, you need to be 10-6. Because I do not see the Lions losing more than 2 games down the stretch, which would put them at 9-7. They're not going to lose 3 games. They're not going to lose all 4 of their games. They might lose 2 games. I think that they will only lose 1 of the remaining 4 games. So you have to put yourself in a position to where if you get to 10-6, you've done everything you can do and you've got a legitimate shot at winning this division. So Dallas at home. Let's call that a win. Cleveland, that's going to be a win in Week 15 on the road against Cleveland. Week 16, Philadelphia, that's a loss. I don't think you win that game. I don't think you go on the road to Philadelphia and win that game. And Green Bay, at home, no Rodgers. Let's just assume they shut him down for the year. Let's say that's a win. That's 9-7. I'm not sure if that's going to be good enough to get into the postseason. I think you actually have to win. My honest assessment, you have to win all of your games to get in. So it's doable. You can do it. But we'll see what happens. But first things first, beat Dallas. You don't beat Dallas, forget about everything I just said. You look at the third place team in this division, the Green Bay Packers. What a season it's been for this Packers franchise. It's almost as if they were foreshadowing what was to come in this season with the struggles that they had at the backup quarterback position in the preseason. Remember, they let go of Flynn in the offseason. He went and got a contract last year in the offseason with Seattle. And so ever since then, they've been looking for a backup quarterback. They thought, and they were really hoping that Graham Harrell would be that guy. They tried to groom him a season ago. It just never worked out. They gave him another chance this year. He just never impressed them. They got rid of him. They brought in Vince Young. He didn't work out either. And then they got rid of Vince Young, and they brought in a couple of castaways, it seemed like, from San Francisco, and Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien. And it's almost as if they knew something was going to happen to Aaron Rodgers, because that mad scramble, that mad dash for a backup quarterback doesn't seem rational unless you feel like, look, every team needs a backup quarterback. I made a video about that teams are devaluing the backup quarterback position, and it's going to come back to bite you. It came back to bite the Green Bay Packers this season as something happened that was unthinkable when the season started, and that was Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. He's been an Iron Man for these guys. I think he's only missed a game or two due to concussion. He missed that, I want to say that New England game a couple of years back when Flynn had a really good game, but they lost. I think that's one of the only games I can remember Aaron Rodgers missing. And he cracked his collarbone, and next thing you know, this Packers team goes from 5-2, I think, on the season to 5-6-1. I mean, that's the difference a franchise QB, the best player in the league, can make. You take him out of the lineup, and even though you've got a great supporting cast around him, you take him out of the lineup, and all of a sudden, in your next 5 games, you go 0-4-1. And so the Packers go from seeming head and shoulders above the rest of this division and looking like they were going to run away with this division at one point to third place, and they can't get out of their own way. So this divisional mark, 2-2-1, everything with this Packers team you take with a grain of salt, because there's an asterisk on this Packers season because of Aaron Rodgers. And so 2-2-1 within the division. Again, this divisional mark would probably be a lot better. I mean, keep this in mind. Matthew Stafford, up until that Thanksgiving game with no Aaron Rodgers, had never beat the Green Bay Packers before. That was his first time beating the Packers in his career. And I find it hard to believe that it would have changed if Aaron Rodgers were in the lineup. But that's nor here nor there. This is a 2-2-1 team in this division. I think their season is all but done. Aaron Rodgers needed to be back by Thanksgiving. That was my stance on if they wanted a chance to still win this division. He needed to be back by Thanksgiving. Of course, as you can see, he was not. And they don't know if he's going to play this week against Atlanta or not. Honestly, I don't think it matters at this point. I don't think they're in a position now to where they can win this division. Now, look, they could win the rest of their games, get to 9-6-1, and put themselves in a position to win this division, sure. But they need a lot of help for that to happen. And they would have to get on their horse and giddy up down the stretch. And I just don't know if they can do that. A home game in Week 14 versus Atlanta, on the road at Dallas in Week 15. Week 16, home for Pittsburgh, round up your season. Week 17 at Chicago. Even if Rodgers comes back, we don't know what percentage he'll be back at. And so that's the question you got to ask yourself. Is he worth risking in a season that's probably not going anywhere anyway? I just don't know if you bring Aaron Rodgers back. If the doctors say, hey, he's fine, it can't get any worse, sure, bring him back. But if they say, hey, there's a chance if he falls on it incorrectly that he could do some serious damage that could keep him out even longer, why? Why risk it in a season that's not going anywhere? I say Rodgers comes back. Let's just say he comes back and he's the same old A-Rod. You're going to beat Atlanta if he plays in this Atlanta game. Even if he doesn't, you still have a legitimate shot at beating a 3-9 football team. So let's just call this one a win, just for the sake of calling it a win. At Dallas, if A-Rod is 100% and he's back in the saddle, has shaken off all of the rust, they can win that game. You guys can win that game. If he's not back, if that's his first game back, you're not beating Dallas. You're not going to beat the Cowboys. So let's just call that one a loss. At Pitt, home for Pitt. Again, everything hinges upon the X factor on this team, and that X factor, of course, is Aaron Rodgers. If he's healthy, you beat Pittsburgh at home. If he's not, you lose that game. So let's just go with the rest of these games under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is playing. You win against Atlanta, you lose against Dallas, you lose or you win against Pittsburgh, and I think you win at Chicago if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. If he's not healthy and he's not playing in these 4 games, I think you still get Atlanta. You lose in Dallas. You lose home at Pitt, home against Pitt, and you lose at Chicago in the season finale. So, to me, it's so tough to really evaluate this Packers team because the defense looks worse. The running game isn't what it once was. When you take Aaron Rodgers out of the equation, you really don't know what's real and what's fake. You don't know what's reality and what's a fallacy in Green Bay anymore. You don't know if your eyes are playing tricks on you, if that's an optical illusion, or if that's just how this team is. Because the team I saw on Thanksgiving looked defeated. The defense looked porous. The running game was non-existent. The Lions essentially came up, put 9 in a box, 8 in a box, and dared the Packers to throw the football. They challenged their manhood. They said, you're not running the football. I dare you. I double dare you. I triple dog dare you to throw the football. And they couldn't. Now, if you stick Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup, does the defense get better just because they're not on the field as much and they got more points to play with? Does the running game get better? Of course it does. If the passing game is better, which it would be. So I really don't know what to make of this Packers team. Just know that they're in 3rd place, and I could easily see them, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, overtaking the Bears and being in 2nd place in this division. But I don't see them catching up with the Detroit Lions. I think that loss at Thanksgiving is going to come back to bite them, and that tie against Minnesota also is going to hurt them in the long run. I don't see the Packers doing enough to win this division. And at 5-6-1, you're not getting in as a wild card. You either win the division or you go home for the winter. And so now we get to the Minnesota Vikings, who were in the playoffs last year, had a tough start to the season. They start this year 0-6 before, really starting to play better football of late. 3-2-1 in their last 6 ball games. So they've been playing better football of late. But again, this is what stings the Minnesota Vikings. Last year, they were stellar in this division. They swept the Lions. I think they stole one from Chicago. and they stole one from Green Bay as well. So this was a team that went 4-2 in the division last year, and that makes all the difference. You win inside the division, you give yourself a shot to do some damage, and that was good enough for them to get into the postseason last year. You fast forward to 2013, they're 1-3-1 in the division, which means they're struggling mightily within their own division, which means they're struggling mightily within their own conference. So it's a double whammy when you're not winning in your division, because it's not only in the division, it's also in the conference as well. And so if you're losing conference games, you can't get in as a wild card either. So it's been a tough season for Minnesota. We all know the struggles of the quarterback position. And now I'm hearing Adrian Peterson talking about wanting to finish his career in Texas, in the state of Texas, with the Texans or the Cowboys. And so even he wants out at this point. It's all bad in Minnesota right now. But you look at this remaining schedule: at Baltimore in Week 14, Philadelphia at home in Week 15, on the road at Cincinnati in Week 16, rounding out your 2013 slate with a home date against the Detroit Lions. Let's look at this quickly. At Baltimore, not going to win that football game. Home against Philly, that's a winnable game. I still don't think you're going to win it. At Cincinnati, no chance in hell of winning that game either. And then home for Detroit, that's a winnable game as well. You don't know what that game will mean for Detroit. That game could mean everything for them. That game could mean absolutely nothing. They could have already have wrapped up this division and have nothing to play for in that game. So honestly, I see the Vikings probably finishing 1-3 down the stretch. Easily could see them finishing 0-4 down the stretch. But I see them getting one of these games. Maybe that home game against Philly. Maybe the home tilt at the end of the season versus Detroit. But you're not going on the road and beating Cincinnati nor Baltimore. And I think that when it's all said and done, the Vikings will finish this season at 4-10 or 4-11-1. I think is where they'll probably wrap this season up. Maybe 5-10-1. That's a best case scenario. That means they would split the final 4 games, and I think a split would mean that they have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions, or the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. It's going to have to be a combination of Detroit and somebody else, whether it be Philly or Baltimore. You're not beating Cincinnati. That's the one game you can't touch in that remaining 4 games. You're not beating the Cincinnati Bengals at Cincinnati. Not happening. So that's the NFC North in a nutshell. Detroit Lions atop the division right now. They own the tiebreaker over the next closest team, that being the Chicago Bears. So Lions are really sitting pretty right now. Essentially, they've got a 2-game spread, above the next closest team in their division. And barring a catastrophic breakdown and meltdown at the end of this season, the Detroit Lions are going to win the NFC North. Hey, how about that? So the Chicago Bears have some work to do. They're still in this thing. They got to win all of their remaining games. All of their games. They got to go 10-6 because they have to finish 1 game better than the Detroit Lions. And you don't want to count on the Lions losing 3 games. Okay? You gotta assume the Lions are going to win 3 out of their last 4, maybe 2 out of their last 4. And if they split, that'll give you the window of opportunity you need, but you got to take care of your end by winning all 4 of your remaining games. Packers, I think they're done. They can do just like their name says and pack it up for the season. And the Vikings, I think, from where they have come at 0-6, that's a solid finish, but again, very disappointing campaign. They'll probably finish off the season at 4-11-1 or 5-10-1. And so that'll do it for the NFC North breakdown. I thank you for joining me on this In the Lab Room exclusive. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back to break down the next division in the list, the NFC South. See you in a little bit. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the Lab Room.